Thanks, Caitlin, and welcome everybody. So today we want to talk a little bit about our customers' journey to the cloud. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about what is ideal, what's our ideal cloud, the features that it offers to you, some of the requirements that you're gonna need when it's time to go live, and then we'll talk a little bit as well about just the experience of converting over and getting converted or moved to the cloud, and then a little bit as well about what to expect when it happens. How's it work? Etc. So my name is Brian Christensen. I'm the product owner for Ideal and Ideal Cloud. I joined Ideal just under 2 years ago. Before that, I spent a lot of time in software development. I've been doing software product development for 20, 25 years, something like that. So been doing it quite a while. Joining us today is Cody Armstrong. I'm really excited to have Cody join us. Cody was one of the first dealers I had an opportunity to visit and talk with, and he's become what I would consider not only a friend but also a kind of a trusted advisor. So would like to welcome Cody. Cody, really appreciate you giving us the time here today, and tell us a little bit about you, about ATS Outdoors, and maybe a little bit about how long you've been with Ideal.
Okay. Name's Cody Armstrong again. So we're a multi-location dealer. I have 2 stores. Opened the first store in 2001, the second one in 2013. We've been using Ideal since 2014, and it really changed our business all the way around, just inventory management and product management, work orders, everything. But we went to the Ideal Cloud this year in April.
Yep. Excellent. Thanks, Cody. And again, welcome. Really appreciate your time. So, Cody mentioned you went to the cloud, but what is the cloud? And for those of you that had an opportunity to attend the presentation earlier with Roger Grimes, he did an excellent job of really going into a lot of detail there. But for as complex as it is, it's very simple. And I loved his first statement, right? It's just somebody else's computer. And with Ideal Cloud, it's the same application that you know and that you've been using. We manage it, we host it within our it's not our data center. We'll talk a little bit more in detail there, but the whole application and the service is delivered to you over the internet. Some of the core features that we provide with that is obviously you get access to the application. We host it, it's on our infrastructure. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail there, what that really means and what it looks like, and some of the things that we've done to make it as stable and resilient and performant as we possibly can. We're managing that entire solution, right? Everywhere. We talked about the software updates, all the security. We monitor the environment, make sure that everything is working the way that it should. And typically speaking, if there's a problem, our folks are going to know even before you do, and have started working on addressing any issues or any problems. Obviously, you get that anywhere, anytime access from it as well. So, grab your laptop, go on vacation. No, don't go on vacation, but grab your laptop, and if you need to work from home, but don't take it on vacation. The other thing that we provide that is unique from our on-premise solution is we do upgrade the service to Firebird 3.0. Firebird is the database that Ideal is built upon. And so when we move to the cloud, that's actually an upgraded version of that database, which gives us a lot more flexibility, more capability. It is better performant, as well as has some additional security features and functionality. And all of that is delivered to you at a single monthly cost. Cody, as a dealer, as you were starting to think down this path and heard about cloud, what were some of the things that stood out for you and appealed to you as from your dealership perspective?
So the things that really appealed to me was not maintaining my own server. We put a new server in 2014, and then I bought a new server again in 2019. Not because it was not because it was going bad. I just didn't want it to go bad. I didn't want to be shut down for a day or two or however long it took to get it back, rebuilt and back up and running. And trying to get it a little faster as well, but not maintaining the equipment. Servers were expensive. It's time consuming for me too. I would always have to go in super early or go in late after everybody's gone and everybody's logged out, and do the updates, do all the things that needed to be done.
Yep, absolutely. You know, I think that's something that people greatly underestimate, and is just the time that it takes to maintain your own equipment, maintain your own servers, your own networks, and read some interesting information as well. Within the first 1 to 2 years of a server's life, right, the expected failure rate is, single digits. By the time a server hits 3 years, it's well up into the 20% likelihood and greater that server is going to fail at some point. So it's always something you have to keep in the back of your mind from a business continuity perspective. And when you're down, it can take time to get it back up. Yeah. So excellent.
Probably the biggest plus to it for me is the security.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and expand on that, or because I think that's an important story from your perspective.
Yeah, the security is very important. I spent a lot of money. I spent a lot of time. I did everything I knew to do to protect myself and protect my server, protect all of my network, my workstations, with the ransomware, malware and ransomware and all the other things. I don't really know what it's called, but but spent a lot of money with a IT company to come in and try to protect myself. I've always heard about this ransomware, and we always hear about it. But I always thought, hey, my business, we're a small business where people aren't going to come after me, and they're not going to attack me. You always think that it's not going to happen to you until it does. And it happened to me this year in April. And it's April in Texas. That's our busiest months of the year are April, May, and June. And I lost 4 days of business in April.
Yep. These guys that are doing malware, there's everybody's susceptible to it, and it's kind of the scary thing about it is I kind of frame it up this way, right? You're inviting the devil into your business. One of their, what they call an attack vector, and like Roger talked to earlier, it's your email, or you're getting tricked in some way to installing that software. It's a Trojan horse. So that's where you can have all the VPNs and all of the virus protection and all that in place, and you still get hit. And the other thing that they do, when Cody and I were talking about this, and he reminded me of the timing and how important April is, and as Roger said as well, right? They'll sit and watch your business for 8 months, 12 months. They figure out when the most painful time to hit a business is. And right, small businesses are not immune. Within the top three of the types of businesses that are going to get attacked are retail, and it is growing exponentially as far as going after small businesses, because the small business is a lot of times more likely to pay because you don't have good backups. You're not diligent there. You're sometimes a little bit easier. You don't have the education around looking for those ransomware or those phishing emails, PHI phishing. So becomes a target of opportunity. So great point there, Cody. So as Cody said, ATS came online about a year ago, back in April. We had released cloud just over a year ago now, 13 months. Since that time, we've added 130 dealers. Actually, that's closer to 150 since I pulled this, so given the last month. We've grown our operations organization as well, so that we can make sure that we've got all the right people in place that are managing it and taking care of it. We've also expanded our professional services group as we're bringing more and more dealers on board, so that we can get those customers to sign up on board and working as quickly as soon as we can. Big changes in the last year. We call it Cloud 2.0. We did a back in the August timeframe, July and August. We reworked our architecture, greatly improved its reliability, the response times, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more detail what we did as well. Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit more? Why you guys decided to go to the cloud and your experience there and what happened. What happened once you get hit with your ransomware. It's an interesting story.
Once we got hit on April the 1st, April Fool's Day. That's the perfect day to do that, I guess. So we got hit on April the 1st. It shut me down for the whole day, day and a half almost. By the end of the day on the 2nd, we worked tirelessly with Paul at Ideal, rebuilding a server from scratch. And at that time I had 24 workstations, I believe. So between both stores, by the end of the day, by the end of the second day, we had one workstation at each store up and running so we could commence business. That was Thursday and Friday. Saturday and Sunday I worked and Paul worked. Till we couldn't work anymore. And by Monday morning, I had all 24 workstations back up and running. Thought I had all the ransomware and malware, whatever it was, removed. And we worked all day Monday. Tuesday morning, it got locked up again. That stuff was still in there somewhere. And so Tuesday morning, we made the decision to go to cloud, and pretty seamless integration. By noon, I think we had almost all of the workstations at both stores up and running by noon. So it was a very seamless transition, especially if you're already running Ideal. It's easy. Users it's the same program. It's the same thing like you would see on your desktop or your local server. Just the way you log in is a little bit different. Takes just a little bit longer to log in, but other than that, it's seamless.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about then how we can make it seamless and how it actually works. And there's really three basic components to this whole thing that make it all work. Obviously, the first one is the internet. You do need to have an internet access. From a requirements perspective, the rule of thumb, and everybody knows how the rule of thumb. Actually, I'm not going to go into this, but if you're go check out how the rule of thumb came into being. It's kind of an interesting story, and it's from way back times. But anyway, rule of thumb, right? About 5 megabit per second per user is a good starting point for your internet. You can get up and you can check that on a site called fast.com. It'll tell you what your access is, what your bandwidth is, and how much bandwidth you have. The one thing that we do talk about and to take a look at is what you're looking for is a synchronous up and down speeds. Okay, so when you measure your bandwidth, it's going to tell you how much download speed you have, and it's going to tell you how much upload bandwidth you have. And so, because the way that we configure and set up the way that Ideal Cloud works, right? It's kind of more two-way traffic. A lot of times when you get your internet and you get a better price on your internet by going with a very high download speed, but a very slow upload speed, because most people aren't uploading. So just the more synchronous or the same you can make those two numbers, or is the better experience that you're going to have. The other thing we tell you to take a look at is your latency. So latency is basically how long it takes from the time when you hit a key on your keyboard for it to go to the server and then come back to the response to come back to your computer. Anything under 100 milliseconds, so that is a timing that's measured in milliseconds. If you're keeping pretty consistently under 100 milliseconds, you're going to be in good shape. Gamers, these guys that are playing real-time games online, they're looking for down in the 25 millisecond range. I can tell you, my local service provider, our servers, they're located obviously throughout the country, in different places. I run about a 50 millisecond latency on my connections, and you can test that with azurespeed.com. But that's just kind of a good rule of thumb as well. The thing to remember is that the other component to this is your dealership. And so starting from the bottom up there, you do want to have, make sure your LAN is in good shape, your local area network. You should be running at a gigabit, and make sure you're checking all your workstations. You might have a gigabit LAN, but when you look at some of your workstations or your PCs, especially if they're older, they may be running at 100 megabit per second instead of 1 gigabit or 1,000 megabit per second. Or even a 100 as opposed to the full, you're not getting the full bandwidth. Other requirements at the dealership, right? You want a 64-bit PC. Couple reasons for that. The first is the Windows Virtual Desktop Client. That is what we install on that workstation, and it creates that connection to our cloud. The other piece, there's another piece of software that we install called the Virtual Channel, and that is one of the things that makes our cloud and helps make it more secure. And that is, we utilize what's called a least privilege access model, which means we don't allow anybody to browse and open up a browser and browse on those servers, with the exceptions of our technicians that know what they're doing and what they're looking for. So any of the links in the application or anything that you would open up, let's say from the welcome page in Ideal, any files that you're exporting, if you're printing to PDF, if you're doing an Excel export, none of those files will actually hit our server. They're going to, through that virtual channel, be directly downloaded and run on your workstations. So that's one of the things that we do to help protect the environment as well. And then the only other things I would mention from a requirement perspective is your credit card readers. They still connect up and a direct connect to your workstations. Currently, most dealers are working with the PAX readers, and for those you do have to have what's called the RDP kit. It's basically, you're going to have one of them that plugs into the internet, one of them that plugs into the USB port on the workstation, and that's what helps make that whole connection. We will be probably around the first of the year. We're going through certification processes and so forth, moving to the new Clover readers, and this is an IP-based connection. So new APIs and new services from Gravity Payments, and then it's all IP-based. So that also then eliminates a few extra pieces of that we have to worry about within this whole configuration. I've been testing it. I really like it. It's a nice little device. Last component here is obviously our data center. This is where we host the servers, the application installed, run the databases. We do utilize Microsoft Azure. We use Microsoft for the infrastructure for a lot of ways. We certainly could have gone and built our own data center and done this. We could have co-located with somebody and installed all of our own hardware and features, set up all of our own those hypervisors that he was talking about. That's a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we still would have never been able to build out the same level of security, the same level of infrastructure that we can get from Microsoft with their Azure, or we certainly could have gone with Amazon, AWS, some of those other services. The other pieces that are here that we're taking care of, obviously, this is where your database resides. Now, one of the things the access to this and this environment is multi-tenant, but your data is not within a multi-tenant database. Period of time from now when we start moving, if you saw my presentation and backlog, where we're going with all of this and moving towards a true web-based application, that will be multi-tenant and certainly, taking advantage of a few more of that, what we call a technology stack, or that architecture. But for right now, your databases are completely separate from your neighbors. This is where the merchant services server resides as well. All of our API, all of our services that we work with, the APIs, if you're using the Ideal API, if you're using mobile, etc. So if you're starting to see a theme here with all of this stuff out on the cloud, it's going to give us much more flexibility and give you more flexibility from an integration perspective as well. One of the common questions I get asked is, hey, can I run this on a Mac or my iOS device, tablet, an Android tablet, Linux, or via a browser? And the answer to that is yes, but a couple things. Number one, all of those other clients, so the Windows Virtual Desktop does have versions of those that will run on those different platforms. However, generally printing is not supported, like in the iOS and the Android devices. So you can't print. All you can do is send it to a PDF. Same thing with a Mac. You can't do direct printing from the Macs. And obviously, we talked about the virtual channel, the little piece of software we install on that. That does not exist for anything other than Windows-based PCs. So web links wouldn't be supported, etc. So we have had some dealers that just want to get on and view it, see the information. They don't need to print. They don't need to do any other stuff. And you could certainly do that. Just keep in mind that it's also difficult for us to support those devices. In fact, we don't really support them. So some of that's going to be, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we're going to be limited in the support that we can provide for it. The major upgrade that we applied here this last year is we did move to a new architecture that put us in a position for much higher reliability, faster recovery, as well as better scalability for the environment. So if you look at kind of the infographic there on the left-hand side, that's a typical configuration. You got a single server, your database installed on that server, all of your users are connecting to that one server. Even if you're in a multi-store scenario, as ATS was, right? If your primary server goes down, everybody is down. Well, with Ideal Cloud, we use what's called a pooled environment. Oh no, my little guys are getting hidden. Right, all those users connect to a different server. And so if we happen to lose one server, let's say that server right here in the middle goes down, what's going to happen is that user is just going to jump to another server. The user basically will recycle, reconnect, and they're back up and running. The other thing that we can do then is we can easily scale that environment. So if we need to add more capacity, we need more computing power, etc., we simply add one on. You're none the wiser. And if that one server's gone down, we just replace it and put another one on. We keep our same capacity, we grow capacity. But the main point here is we've built a system now that highly reliable. If something does happen, you're back up and running in minutes, or not even minutes, in seconds. Just restart the user, and we can scale it. The other benefit that we get here is it's a system that can be we get better performance out of as well. So Cody, kind of want to shoot a question here at you for this one. You were on before we made the change.
Right.
What have you seen since we've shifted over here, and how's things been working since we made that change?
It's definitely a better experience. We're not dropping out as much, and it's reliable. It's we always have a connection. So
yep.
Before we made the switch, we did have a few issues, and then none of our users could log in. And it was just like my server being down that was local, that nobody could log in. But after this change, it's been very, very reliable.
So cool. So let's go through, talk a little bit about your experience and what does it look like when you go online. When you start moving to the cloud, the basic process is going to look something like this. Once you sign the agreement, you'll work with our project team out of the PSG group. They'll contact you, get set up with a kickoff meeting, and during that time, they'll discuss with you what your current environment look like. Gather all the information that we need. What kind of printers do you have? Are you using merchant services? What are the peripherals? What kind of cash registers are you using? The one thing I will note here is that you do have to have any of the IP based or the cash registers that work through the Star printer drivers, because we've got to have that type of connection to make this work over the internet. But they'll work with you on get all that information. Once they've got all of that, then our operations folks will set up the environment, get a training database set up for you. If you're a new customer on Ideal, this is the time period where our training group will work with you, go through and do all of your training. If you're an existing customer, don't need any training, etc., then we would move right to the start scheduling and planning your go live. And the go live looks something like this. The first thing we do is at the end of your business day, we'll get a backup of your data before we start the move. Once they've got that backup, then what we do is we move the data to our environment, your database, if you will, and we convert it at that point in time for the cloud. They'll also then the operations team will work with you. They'll set up all of your workstations, get that Windows Virtual Desktop installed, set up a shortcut on your desktop for the users. And then they'll also make sure that all your integrations are working, make sure the peripherals are set up and working the way they should do. And then we also coordinate with Gravity Payments if you're utilizing Gravity Payments, and coordinate the integration with all of your payment terminals. Cody, share with us again. You guys, like I said, we talked earlier, you guys had a pretty unique situation. But how did that experience go for you guys getting up and going? And then after you went live, what was some of the how did your users handle the new environment?
So setting up was pretty seamless. It was the longest part took getting all the paperwork in and getting it signed and getting back. So but once we really good backups, so make sure you have really good backups. But I had good backups, so we took our backups from the end of the day before. They moved it into the environment and started working on my workstations, setting up the desktop icon. So it's very seamless. Once that's done, the users, there's not much difference at all. There was hardly any training to do. There's just a different icon to click on versus the other one. Takes a little bit longer to log in. Starts loading the printers, starts loading some other things in the background, I'm sure. But once it gets logged in, it's the same program.
Yep, excellent. So what you're seeing here on the screen right now, on the left-hand side, is I'm connected to my cloud instance. You can see it's got a little bit different icon. Has the cloud on the icon, so you know which one to work with. And then on the right is my local instance of Ideal. Just a different icon. Application is the same, and obviously I'm looking at one's the product list there, and the other one is my sales orders list. But as far as how the application works, what it does, how your users are going to act with it, it's all the same. And that was intentional. Right. What we could have certainly done here is we could have spent a lot of time taking the entire application ideal, move that out to a web-based application, right? So that's a different way of developing software for to oversimplify it. But we could have rebuilt all of that. And when you do that, two things are going to happen. Number one, Ideal has been around for 20, 25 years. For a long time. There's a lot of functionality that's been added and built in over time. And when you start rebuilding something on a new, rebuilding a new application, you're going to lose. You can't build all of that at one time, or if you do, it's going to take you a very long time to do it and get it done. So it's going to delay doing what we really need to do, and that's getting people moved to the cloud so that we can start taking advantage of some of the things that are happening in the industry, the integrations that go on, et cetera. The other thing that we wanted to make sure we didn't do is that when you change an application, and I've been through this several times throughout my career, when you I'm working with application A, and all of a sudden I've got new application B, your productivity is going to take a significant hit. Your users have to learn how to use it. It's a different interface. Things work differently. And we didn't want to introduce a really long learning curve. We wanted things to seamlessly be able to get to the cloud, start taking advantage of those capabilities and access, and then slowly migrate over time. So that's our overall strategy, is that over time, we will be moving and transitioning Ideal, the more desktop-oriented application, to a cloud or a browser-based DMS. And you're starting to see some of those pieces starting to happen, right? With the Target CRM is a perfect example. Another excellent example is the parts locator, right? It's in the application. You don't necessarily even know that parts locator is working as a browser-based and working on the internet. Our welcome page is another example of that. So that's the strategy you'll see from Ideal over time, and we'll continue to move from a hosted application accessing with the Windows Virtual Desktop to more of a true browser-based application. So some of the things to think about, and Cody alluded to a couple of these, but as you go over, yes, load times are going to be a little bit different. We have to make all those initializations. Cody was talking about the printers. We've actually now eliminated that. We've found a way that we don't have to go through that additional step, and that cuts down on that load time significantly. Cody, talk to us a little bit about your guys' experience with the performance. Our goal is always, we're targeting sub 3-second response rates, and that's pretty typical for any even browser-based applications, any hosted type application. We want to have something back to the users in 3 seconds. There's a lot of variables that go into that, and we've got to do some. There's going to be some areas within the application. But how's it worked for ATS? What's your guys' experience been there?
So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The speed wise, when I had the server in our local at one store, the server at that store, that environment always seemed to be a little slower. My second store was remote desktop, and it was directly into the server, and remote desktop always seemed a little faster at the remote store than the local store with the server. Once the change happened, the users at the store with the server, they didn't experience much of a difference in speed wise. The second store, they got calls and complaints for quite some time, but everybody's gotten used to it. It is definitely just a little slower, but it's not bad. It's really not that bad. It's getting better too. Brian, we've been working with Brian, so he's been working on it, and it is getting better.
Yep. And that's as you move in an application into this type of environment, it's going to tend to expose some of those areas. We definitely have been optimizing within the application. and making changes there. And I talked to several dealers about this. I speak with dealers, and not sure if anybody listened when we talked with Bob Haight from Haight's Mobile Maintenance about a month ago. And from their experience was that the performance definitely improved from the server that they had in place and were managing themselves. So if you are in an environment, and I will say that Cody and ATS, they built up a good system. They were doing all the right things. They had, their network was secured, etc. And if you've got a really good system in place and it's fast, yes, you might notice a little bit of a speed difference going when you move to the cloud. On the other side of the coin, I've had several dealers as well that have said, no, it's gotten much faster for us, and that's because now they're in a better, more optimized, a different environment, and it's better optimized than their current configuration. Things I would say to take care and make sure you're looking at there, make sure your internal networks are optimized, working well, and also make sure, so part of this WVD, make sure that you're keeping that WVD up to date. And I'll show you a screenshot here in a second of where you can look at to do that. But that's probably one of the biggest gotchas going on right now. So as you may or may not know, Microsoft recently announced their Windows 365. It uses this same technology that we're using. So they are constantly pushing updates of the Windows Virtual Desktop out, and about every 2 weeks, in fact. So you want to make sure you're keeping that up to date. And what can happen is depending on your security settings, it won't let Windows automatically run that update. And when that happens, your users, we think it's about a 4-hour cycle, but about every 4 hours, it'll try to update. And if it can, it just drops the connection. You can double click, reconnect, you're back up and running without any issues. It looks completely random because all of the workstations in your organization are on different cycles. But if you keep that up to date, that seems to make that issue go away. And I'll show you that here in a second. The other thing that I would say, and to take a look and be conscious of when you move to the cloud, with the desktop application, if you get stuck with something, you get locked up, maybe it stopped responding, you got an error message, etc. Right? Control Alt Delete, or go into Task Manager, kill the application, start it over, and away you go. You don't want to do that in a cloud environment. And so we've added a startup tool here. If you get into that scenario, the first thing I would say is listen to what's going on. If you're trying to do something and it's dinging at you, that means there's a window hidden somewhere. Just click on the icon in the toolbar. That'll usually bring it forward. I know one of the things I do to myself all the time is I'll run a report, hide it, forget that I've done it, and now I'm stuck and I just got to go click on the toolbar icon that gets that report back into the foreground, and I can close it and continue on. But you can always go back, just double click on the Ideal icon again, and you'll see this screen here if there's an instance of Ideal running, and you can restart Ideal. That will completely restart the application, kills all the connections. You're going to lose any work that you had done at that point. You can also just resume where you were. Click on the resume. It'll bring Ideal back to the foreground and pick you up right where you left off. And then the last thing is resetting users. So there are times when a user and that configuration for any number of reasons can just get a little bit wonky. So that reset user allows you to kill that user's session and restart Ideal. And we usually see that around printers and the printer connections where the user just isn't seeing the printer or some other instances there. But always reach out to support. They can help you with it as well. But these are easy ways to get back to where you were and where you were working. Couple other things, like I talked earlier, keep your network. Make sure that your internal network is in good condition, up to date with your that you've got all your network card settings correctly. Everything's running at a gigabit. The other thing I would say on that LAN connectivity is that if you're running video surveillance on the same network, you might want to work with your local IT and consider segmenting your network. And basically what that means is that you put your video on one, you allocate bandwidth within your network, and you put your video on one, and you let everything else run on another. And the reason I say that with video, particularly with some of the surveillance videos, is that video tends to use what's called multicasting, ways to get flood your network. And so all of a sudden your traffic drops down. Even seen it as so much that when that happens, it'll kick users off, off any other network connections and even that they'll have. And you get the message up that says, hey, we're trying to reconnect. Generally speaking, ideal. Will just automatically redo it itself. Sometimes not. You just have to restart. But so that's just things to think about and look at as you work forward. Cody, I think we're ready to jump in and start asking some questions. What would be some advice you might offer to other dealers that are considering this move to the cloud?
Don't be afraid of it. I was afraid of it a little bit just because I already owned my equipment. I managed it. I thought I was doing a really good job. There is a little bit of a cost increase going that way, and it bit me in the butt. Just the security and the peace of mind is well worth the money. I don't have to manage that server anymore. I don't have to worry about ransomware attacks and now, if we do get something, I can't control 24 people, 24 workstations, and it could have been me that accidentally opened an email with that Trojan that ultimately caused this ransomware, and just the peace of mind and the security. If you're already an ideal user, it's very easy to switch. It's very easy to move forward.
Excellent. Well, Cody, much appreciate it. We're going to open it up to questions. The one thing I would talk about it from a pricing perspective, and something to consider there. When you look at the cost of what the monthly fee that's going to get added, and you start comparing that and run total cost of ownership calculations, and look at what are you spending in your time. What are you spending and paying to an IT professional to come in and upgrade your servers or manage your servers and apply your updates? And also, one of the things I see, not just within our industry and within our customer base, but have seen it for years and years, and that is, keeping a server up to date, especially if you don't have dedicated resources to do that, then it doesn't happen. Even just look at if you look at most Windows PCs, and you get the nice little messages all the time. Microsoft is polite enough to prompt you and let you know that there's updates available and you need to update them. It just doesn't happen. And when you don't keep things up to date, that creates holes. A lot of those updates include security patches and what Microsoft from the OS perspective have learned. So that takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And so you really want to take a look at and run a total cost of ownership. What's your time worth? Where are your opportunity costs, right? Could I be spending time on working and patching my server, or could I be spending time on implementing a new marketing activity and implementing some of those tools? So lots of food for thought there. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Looks like we got about 5 to 10 minutes remaining here. And just a reminder too, if you want to, I Haven't looked to see if I have any sessions open yet, but I do have one-on-one sessions for available on Friday if you want to dive deeper or ask any deeper questions. And if not, if I don't see any questions come in, I've got a few. We'll take the next 5 minutes here and we can start, we can go through those as well.
Was one question that just came in.
Yep, a couple of them coming in. Excellent.
Yeah.
Right. So the first one is from Louis Secchi. What happens when there is a natural disaster like a hurricane that causes us to have an internet outage for days or weeks? The first thing I will say is and we went through that right here in Cedar Rapids. We had the derecho. Internet was down for quite some time. You do want to have some type of a redundant connection with your internet, and you can do that in multiple different ways. You can have 2 different carriers coming into your business. You can utilize cellular connections as well, especially now with 5G coming out. The performance is good, and generally speaking, because you can access this from anywhere. So you can go anywhere and do your work. I will tell you, when we had the derecho here in Cedar Rapids, I have fiber for one of the fortunate ones with fiber. I also have had cellular connections. So my fiber never went down. As long as I had power, I was still able to get connectivity. And then I also was able to get connected via cellular the day that it happened and maintain connectivity. Generally speaking, what you're going to find is internet connections are going to come up quickly. The disaster people, the services, they need that as well to do their job. It's like was being discussed earlier. So I think you can expect that that's going to come up quicker. But yeah, you're always going to have some type of connectivity to get access to your information and your data, but there's a multitude of ways that you'll be able to accomplish that, even if it's picking up a laptop and getting it connected to a hotspot or something like that. Next question, during the transition period, is it all remote, or will someone come to our location for hands-on? As far as doing the conversions and moving you, that's all done remotely. We'll simply remote into each one of those PCs, install the software, and get it taken care of. And then they'll work with you and through BombGuard and our remote desktop capabilities, we can get in and see and walk people through anything they need to, etc. But I'm certain our professional services group, if you wanted something more, talk to them and they can work something out with you. Yeah, Emmy, same question. What do you do if the internet is down? I always recommend redundant connections in some way, shape, or form. The thing to think about when you're looking at redundant connections into your business, so FYI, for a period of time within my career, I worked building data centers. As well as worked for telecommunication providers. So one of the things that can happen is that when you go to 2 different local providers of internet to get internet, you get your redundant connections, and what you'll find out is they're both running off of the same local backbone. So internet provider connects up to the backbone of the internet, if you will, and if they don't have their own redundant connection to 2 different backbones, if one goes down, the other one's down at the same time, and that does you no good. So you want to make sure that you've got a second truly redundant connection. And again, I am a big fan of using cellular as a redundant connection. You can plug it right into your routers. If your router goes down, it'll immediately connect to the cellular. Yes, your bandwidth goes down, but you're still maintaining connectivity and you can still continue to work. And a lot of times, you only have to pay for, you pay a very small monthly fee for the just to have it there, and then you'd only pay when you need to fail over. And a good analogy to that whole thing is if those of you that are iPhone users, right, it had its cell backup, and you could use your, if you were on Wi-Fi and you were getting bad Wi-Fi connection, you could have it use cellular to continue your connection on yourself right there on your cell phone. Same type of thing applies. Okay, let's see. Don't see anything else coming in here. I'm going to throw up a few questions and common ones that I get. Feel free to keep throwing questions in, guys. Obviously, first one, I kind of expected that one. What happens if the internet goes down? The other thing is I would have a lot of times when you have those natural disasters or something, your internet actually doesn't go down. Those connections are maintained, but you've lost power. So you've lost power to your modem. So if you get some type of a battery backup or generator, as long as you can keep power to your modem, you're going to be able to connect to the internet. We talked about reliability, speed. Will all my current printers work? That's a common question I run into. Yes. The thing I would say with the printers, just make sure that when you're going through your initial discovery conversation and the kickoff meeting, identify all those printers. Actually, we just went through this with Cody. Was having some problems with some printers. Pardon me. And you get some of the different types of printers. We have to make sure we get the right printer drivers installed, and we want to make sure that the versions of those printer drivers are in sync. So make sure you're communicating and letting go through that when you're onboarding and going through that interview. The email all works the same. Document manager. One of the things I did want to talk to is, can I use my own domain? So let's say you've got your own domain name and you want to use that for the authentication. Right now, we cannot do that. That is something that I'm looking into to see if we can add into the future. You heard this come up with the conversations from Roger, if you were on that call, right? Who owns this data? Gang, the data is yours. It goes with you. If you ever left Ideal, which we certainly hope you don't, but it's yours. It goes with you. Yes, it's residing on our server, and it would be the same process if you were an on-premise customer. We can reduce the license, make it read-only. You still can access all of your data. And then, who can see your data? This is a really good question. We don't go as far as somebody like a GoDaddy or something like that. Spent time at GoDaddy as well on their product side. And if you weren't in the support organization, you couldn't get in. You couldn't see any of that information. They even went so far as no writing utensils. They used whiteboards to write on. We certainly don't go that far. Not really necessary on our side, but the people that are going to have visibility to your data, support, if you are working with them, they'll obviously be able to see it. Some of our development organization will have that visibility when they need to look into and fix something. And our operations group. Nobody outside of those groups will have that visibility. Trainers, obviously, as well, when they're training you. But as far as who can just log in and get to the system and get into your databases, it's that small group. Signature capture all works. Your files and so forth, you have access to those via. They're all go to your local workstation, so they're not stored to our printers. So, and I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. And we are 5 minutes away from our next session at 1 o'clock. So with that, I'm going to thank Cody again for joining us. Appreciate your time today.
Yes, sir.
And any last words of wisdom you want to share?
We'll just talk about the internet going down and redundancy a little bit. We've had with having two stores and we had one server and we're remote desktop into the other, internet uptime was very important. We'd lose one store or lose both stores, and so we've had redundant internet for many years now. And even currently today, now I've changed from what I had before. We had two internet service providers before. Now I have a LTE backup or 5G backup. So it's just connected to the router. It's the same internet service provider we use. It was cheap at $25 a month. It just adds on. They set it all up. The internet goes down. It's seamless, kicks right in, kicks out when it shuts off. So redundancy is important. And it doesn't matter if you're local or not. You lose internet, you can't run credit card machines these days. So
very true. Yeah, that is very true. Okay, with that, we'll. I don't see any other questions coming in.
Yeah. I think we can, kind of wrap up there. Brian, I don't know if you have any final thoughts you'd like to share as well. Then I can conclude the presentation.
So just, if anybody wants to spend any one-on-one time with me, feel free to schedule it. Otherwise, you can always reach out to me. That looks like it's hidden, at least for me, but my email address is there. Just make sure you give yourself about 5 minutes to type that whole thing in. And then other than that, thanks for your time today. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Cody and Brian, for the presentation. Cody, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share your experience with us and participate in our presentation. So thank you again. If you'd like to learn more about the Cloud DMS, please feel free, as Brian mentioned, to book some time with him tomorrow. I do think you have a couple of meetings scheduled right now. So if you're not able to book a time with him tomorrow, again, you can reach out via his email address, or you're welcome to submit a request through our dealer portal, and we'd be happy to talk to you a little bit about what you can expect when you're onboarding cloud services. That does officially conclude our scheduled training sessions and general sessions for the virtual summit. We'd like to thank each of you for participating in our event. We hope that you learned a little bit more about how to optimize the usage of your respective software. With that in mind, we did enable a survey this morning. We'd really appreciate your feedback so we can keep it in mind for future events. With that, some of you might have some one-on-one scheduled this afternoon, but if not, we look forward to seeing you for the closing ceremonies tomorrow morning with our General Manager, AJ Thacker. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Cody, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.